So I'm hoping you watched the Khan Academy podcast on the Houses of Parliament, since I'm going to go fast. The Houses of Parliament burned down in 1834. Remember that Turner painting? And Charles Barry and A.W.N. Pugin won the contest to design a replacement using either Elizabethan or Gothic architectural styles. This charge reflected a general revulsion against industrial ready-made goods and a desire to return to an era that was seen as embodying true craftsmanship. Later on, we'll see architects embrace the industrial world, but we're not there yet. Pugin, by the way, was a devout convert to Catholicism. It was one reason he loved Gothic architecture. He associated it with an age before the Reformation split the church. Another interesting detail that your textbook leaves out is the Gothic revival was actually associated with a conservative Victorian reaction against liberal ideas, and against neoclassicism and with it liberalism. Many thought that this had ignited the bloody French Revolution and the subsequent Napoleonic Wars. But in truth, there are a lot of neoclassical elements to the design. Leave out the stone tracery and the spiral towers, and basically, this could be a Renaissance palace. The perpendicular Gothic style was selected partly to harmonize with nearby Westminster Abbey. It's actually really part of the whole complex, and it's shown here on the left. It's a peculiarly English form of Gothic that emphasizes, as you might expect from the name, vertical lines and a general impression of soaring toward the sky. This fanciful home was constructed by Sir Horace Walpole, who was a writer and politician, the son of England's first prime minister. It's not in your textbook, but I think it must have been an earlier edition, since it does show up on a couple of AP exams. Note the date. Strawberry Hill actually prefigures Gothic revival, might even be considered a kind of Rococo building. Really, there was nothing else like it at the time, and in fact, it helped spur the later movement toward Gothic revival. Well, your textbook blames this architectural monstrosity on imperialism, on the influence of Indian architecture, and that may be right, but I'd personally rather blame it on the Prince Regent, later George IV, who had notoriously weird and decadent tastes. I suppose he wanted his own Taj Mahal. But the Royal Pavilion does have some innovative features, most notably a cast iron skeleton. So we are starting to see these new materials of the Industrial Revolution. The fake palm trees supporting the kitchen ceiling are also made of iron, and they were quite the curiosity. So you have this odd mixture of revivalism, interest in old styles, and using modern materials, very eclectic. Why does this not want to move? There we go. Different countries have different versions of what constitutes the good old days. In Paris, revivalism harked back to the Baroque era of Louis XIV. It also reflected the wealth of an urban elite that was benefiting from global trade, the Industrial Revolution, and a break from constant warfare. So this style is called Beaux-Arts, after the French School of Fine Arts in Paris. And actually, Beaux-Arts buildings in the French world will last well into the early 20th century. Beaux-Arts style actually combined Baroque ornamentation with a neoclassical underlying structure. But if you think about it, French Baroque architecture always retained a classical or Renaissance symmetry. France never fully went for Baroque in its exterior. Interior is another matter. This building, by the way, shows up on more than one AP exam, sometimes combined with photos of its interior, which do not appear in your textbook, but will appear in this lecture. So this is the Grand Staircase, probably the most famous room or element in the Paris Opera House. Picture men in formal wear, women in ball gowns sweeping up and down the staircase. They went to the opera, after all, to see and be seen and to show off all that finery that their wealth provided. This was Paris's great bourgeois age. Note the classical or Renaissance elements again, the double columns separated by arches. And here is the really neo-Baroque Grand Foyer with its ceiling, which is very similar to the kind of ceilings that were painted by Italian Baroque artists, particularly Carracci. Now, this reading room is more neo-Renaissance. Note the barrel vaults in particular, but what makes it striking and earns it a place on at least one AP exam, hint, is the way that iron rather than masonry has been used to support and outline the barrel vaults. And here we'd go a step further with iron. This is what's called an undraped building, basically an iron skeleton with glass. It employs an architecture that moved from Victorian greenhouses to this exhibition hall. So the 1851 Great Exhibition was held to display the products of the Industrial Revolution and Britain's empire, and it highlighted Britain's role as the world's leading economy. The innovative materials notwithstanding, this is actually another neo-building, in this case, neo-late Roman, early Christian. The design was based on the Roman and early Christian basilica. It was dismantled and rebuilt after the exhibition, but burned down in 1936. Well, I promised we'd go fast, and we did. So now that we've looked at efforts to recapture the past, let's jump into the future with the next lecture and look at early forays into photography.